My name is James and I'm a professional drone videographer. I shoot real estate, weddings, corporate events, anything that pays well. My wife Patricia worked at a marketing company downtown. We'd been married for 5 years and I thought I knew her inside and out. How wrong I was. It all started 3 months ago, but looking back now, I can see the signs were there much earlier. Patricia had begun staying late at work. First once a week, then more frequently. She talked about important projects, deadlines, endless meetings. I didn't think much of it initially. I had my own periods of working late, editing videos for clients until the early hours of the morning. The first real red flag came on a Tuesday evening in September. Patricia had texted me at 4 p.m. saying she'd be working late again, probably until 9 p.m. I was at home editing a wedding video when I decided to surprise her with dinner. I drove to her office building around 8:30 p.m., expecting to find the lights on and Patricia hunched over her desk. The building was completely dark. The parking lot was empty except for a security guard's car. I called Patricia and she answered on the first ring, sounding slightly out of breath. "Hey honey, what's up?" she said, and I could hear music and chatter in the background. "I'm at your office to bring you dinner, but the building looks closed," I said. There was a pause. "Oh, we moved to a client's office for this project. Different building. I should have told you." "Don't worry about dinner, we ordered pizza." It sounded reasonable, but something felt off. The background noise didn't sound like a work environment. It sounded like a restaurant or bar. A few days later, I ran into her colleague Sarah at a coffee shop near our house. We got to talking and she mentioned casually that their office had a strict policy. Everyone was out by 5 p.m. sharp and nobody ever stayed late. Security locked the building at 6 p.m. That's when my suspicions really began. But I decided not to jump to conclusions. Maybe Patricia was meeting clients at other locations? Or working remotely somewhere like a cafe. The next time she went for a shower after another hard day at the office, I quickly installed a location tracking app on her phone. Technically, it wasn't difficult. I knew her passcode because we supposedly had no secrets from each other. At least that's what I thought. For several weeks, I monitored her movements. Sometimes she really was at the office until 5, then went somewhere else. But more often, she didn't appear at work after lunch at all. The coordinates showed various addresses around the city: restaurants, hotels, private homes. But whenever I tried to drive there to check, Patricia had already disappeared. The tracking revealed a pattern. Every Tuesday and Thursday she would leave work early and drive to the same upscale neighborhood about 20 minutes from her office. She'd stay there for 2 to 3 hours, then drive home, arriving with stories about overtime work or client meetings. I started paying closer attention to her behavior at home. Patricia had always been affectionate, but now she seemed distant. She spent more time on her phone, often taking it to the bathroom or stepping outside to take work calls. When I tried to look over her shoulder at what she was doing, she'd quickly close apps or turn the screen away. One evening, I noticed she'd changed her phone's passcode. When I asked about it, she said her company had implemented new security protocols requiring more complex passwords. Another lie, I realized, but I played along. I decided to upgrade my surveillance. Using my professional connections, I acquired a small GPS tracker that I could attach to her car. It was the kind of device private investigators used, completely invisible once installed and capable of providing real-time location data. Installing it was easier than I expected. Patricia always parked in our garage and she was a heavy sleeper. One night, while she was asleep, I went out and attached the tracker under her car's rear bumper. It looked like just another piece of the vehicle's undercarriage. The GPS data confirmed what the phone tracking had suggested, but provided much more detail. Patricia was spending her overtime hours at a luxury apartment complex called Riverside Gardens. She would arrive around 2 p.m. and leave around 6 p.m., then drive home via a circuitous route that would explain why she arrived later than expected. I looked up the apartment complex online. It was expensive, the kind of place where a one-bedroom unit rented for more than our mortgage payment. Definitely not somewhere Patricia could afford on her salary, and not a place where her marketing company would have clients. This went on for another month. Every Tuesday and Thursday, like clockwork, Patricia would disappear to Riverside Gardens. I was dying to know what was happening there, but I needed to be smart about it. I couldn't just show up and confront her. I needed solid evidence. Then opportunity presented itself. I told Patricia I had an urgent commission to shoot a country estate and would be away until Monday. Patricia happily informed me that she was planning a mountain getaway with her girlfriends for the weekend. Perfect timing, wasn't it? But instead of heading to any mountain resort, The GPS tracker showed Patricia driving toward the same mountain area where I'd once shot a corporate retreat video. I knew that area well, lots of expensive vacation rentals and private cabins owned by wealthy city folks. On Friday evening, I followed her car from a distance of several kilometers. The coordinates confirmed what I was seeing. She was indeed heading into the mountains. But was she really with girlfriends? She stopped at a beautiful wooden cabin overlooking a lake. I parked my car in the forest nearby and prepared to wait. I had my best drone with me, the same one I used to shoot high-end weddings for wealthy clients. Around 9 in the evening, Patricia emerged from the cabin. But she wasn't alone. There was a man with her. Even from a distance, it was obvious they weren't just friends. They held hands, he wrapped his arm around her waist, they kissed openly. My heart was pounding, but I forced myself to stay calm. I needed evidence. An hour later, Patricia sent me a selfie from what appeared to be a hot tub. The photo showed only her, smiling and relaxed. The caption read, "Missing you but not too much winking face." That winking emoji particularly stung. How cynical did she have to be to joke at a moment like this? It was time to act. I covered all the LED lights on my drone with black tape so it wouldn't be visible in the darkness. I launched it into the air and began approaching the hot tub area. First, I flew at about 30 meters altitude, then gradually descended. And there I saw them. Patricia and an unknown man sitting in the hot tub, embracing and kissing. They were so absorbed in each other that they didn't notice the quiet humming of the drone overhead. I descended further to get a clear shot of the man's face. That's when they finally heard the sound and started looking around. Patricia even laughed and said something like, "Someone decided to give us a free photo session." They started throwing things at the drone, towels, bottles, even slippers. But I had captured everything I needed and flew away. Back at my car, I reviewed the footage. The quality was perfect, every detail visible, every face clear. I wanted to send these clips to Patricia immediately, but I decided to wait. I had a better plan forming in my mind. The next day, I hired a private investigator to find out who this man was. It turned out his name was Michael Thompson, and he was the financial director of a large construction company. Married with 2 children. He lived in a luxury mansion in a prestigious neighborhood. But the most interesting part wasn't this. I learned that Michael was leading a double life. Officially, he was an exemplary family man, but in reality he had several mistresses simultaneously. Patricia wasn't the only one. Moreover, he was using company funds to finance his affairs, paying for hotels, restaurants, gifts. The investigator dug deeper and discovered that Michael had been systematically embezzling money from his company for over 2 years. He'd created fake vendor accounts, inflated expense reports, and even set up shell companies to funnel money into his personal accounts. The amounts were staggering, over $500,000. I also learned that the apartment at Riverside Gardens was one of several properties Michael rented under false names for his affairs. He rotated his mistresses through different locations to avoid detection. Patricia was apparently his Tuesday through Thursday girl, while other women had other scheduled days. This information gave me an idea for the perfect revenge. I wouldn't just expose the affair, I would destroy both their lives completely. I spent 2 weeks creating a comprehensive dossier. I compiled the drone footage with photographs from social media, financial records. The investigator had contacts who could access these, phone records showing their communication patterns, and a complete timeline of their affair dating back 8 months. The drone footage was just the tip of the iceberg. I had evidence of Michael picking Patricia up from work, credit card records showing he'd paid for expensive dinners and hotel rooms, even receipts for jewelry he'd bought her. Patricia had been careless, posting photos on social media wearing earrings and necklaces I'd never seen before, always on days when she'd been with Michael. I discovered that their affair had started at a marketing conference Patricia's company had sponsored. Michael's construction company had been a major client, and he'd specifically requested Patricia to handle their account. What started as business meetings had quickly turned personal. The investigator also uncovered Michael's pattern of behavior. He'd done this before with other women, targeted married women in vulnerable positions, wined and dined them, made them feel special, then moved on when he got bored or when the situation became too complicated. I realized Patricia was just another conquest for him, but she'd fallen completely under his spell. She'd started dressing differently, wearing more expensive clothes and accessories he'd bought her. She'd changed her hairstyle, started going to a more upscale salon. She'd even taken up yoga, which Michael had apparently suggested. But Michael had made one crucial mistake. He'd gotten greedy with the company funds, and there were people starting to ask questions. My revenge would simply accelerate the inevitable discovery of his crimes. I created several versions of my evidence package. A short version for Patricia, focusing on the affair itself. An expanded version for Michael's wife, including evidence of his other affairs. And the most comprehensive version for his company's board of directors and the authorities, detailing his financial crimes. I also prepared a social media strategy. I created fake accounts on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and identified all of Patricia's friends, family members, and co-workers. I did the same for Michael's social circle. When the time came, I would ensure everyone in both their lives knew exactly what kind of people they were. On Thursday evening, when Patricia returned from another overtime session at work, I was waiting for her in our living room. I'd set up my laptop with the short version of the video ready to play. "Patricia," I said calmly, "we need to talk." She looked at me with that innocent expression she'd perfected over the past months. "What about, honey?" I turned the laptop screen toward her and pressed play. The drone footage began with a wide shot of the mountain cabin, then zoomed in on the hot tub where she and Michael were clearly visible, embracing intimately. Her face went white. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. "I know about Michael Thompson," I continued. "I know about the apartment at Riverside Gardens. I know about the jewelry, the dinners, the weekend trips. I know everything." Patricia finally found her voice. She started with denial. It wasn't what it looked like, the footage was misleading, she could explain everything. When that didn't work, she moved to tears and apologies. She said it was a mistake, that she still loved me, that she would end it immediately. But I wasn't done. "Patricia, I have the complete version of this video, plus financial records, phone logs, and evidence of Michael's other affairs and his embezzlement. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., unless you sign the divorce papers my lawyer prepared today, this information goes to everyone, your family, your friends, your co-workers, Michael's wife, his company, and the FBI." She stared at me in shock. You've been planning this? "You've been planning your affair for 8 months, I replied. "I've been planning my response for 2 weeks. The difference is, my plan actually works." I showed her the divorce papers. They were heavily weighted in my favor. She would get nothing from our shared assets, no alimony, no claim on my business or equipment. In exchange, I would keep the evidence private and not pursue any claims against her personally. She signed without reading the full document. She was too shaken to negotiate or even ask questions. She packed a single suitcase and left that night, staying at her sister's house. But that was just the beginning. At exactly 9 a.m. the next morning, I began executing the rest of my plan. First, I sent the comprehensive evidence package to Michael's wife, Rebecca. I'd researched her thoroughly. She was a pediatric nurse, active in her children's school, apparently completely unaware of her husband's double life. I felt sorry for her, but she deserved to know the truth. At 10 a.m., I sent the financial evidence to Michael's company CEO, CFO, and the chairman of the board of directors. I also sent copies to the company's external auditors and their legal department. At 11 a.m., I filed complaints with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, the IRS, and the State Attorney General's office, providing all the evidence of Michael's embezzlement and fraud. Throughout the day, I systematically contacted everyone in Patricia's and Michael's social circles. I sent the affair evidence to their friends, family members, and co-workers. I posted it on social media accounts where both of them were tagged. I made sure there was no corner of their lives where this information wouldn't reach. The results were swift and devastating. By noon, Michael had been escorted out of his office by security. By evening, Rebecca had filed for divorce and taken their children to her parents' house. By the end of the week, Michael was facing criminal charges for embezzlement, fraud, and tax evasion. Patricia tried to contact me several times, but I didn't respond. What was there to say? She'd made her choice, and now she was living with the consequences. The investigator kept me updated on the fallout. Michael's assets were frozen while authorities investigated the full extent of his crimes. The luxury mansion, the expensive cars, the secret apartments, all of it was being seized or repossessed. Rebecca was cooperating fully with prosecutors in exchange for immunity, providing even more evidence of his illegal activities. Patricia lost her job within days. Her company couldn't afford to be associated with the scandal, especially since she'd been involved with a client. Her reputation in the marketing industry was destroyed. She'd moved back in with her parents and was working at a retail job in a different city. Interestingly, after a month, Patricia tried to reach out to Michael for support, thinking that they might find comfort in each other during this difficult time. But it turned out he'd lost everything: his job, his house, his savings had gone to pay back the company. He was facing serious prison time and couldn't help anyone, least of all another woman who'd contributed to his downfall. The final twist came 2 months later. The investigator discovered that Michael had been secretly recording his encounters with his various mistresses, including Patricia. He'd apparently planned to use this footage for blackmail if any of them ever threatened to expose him. But when the FBI raided his properties, they found everything. This meant that even more intimate details of Patricia's affair became part of the legal record. The humiliation was complete and public. She'd lost her marriage, her job, her reputation, and even her privacy. As for me, I got the best promotional material for my business imaginable. It turned out that professional drone videography could be useful for more than just weddings. Word spread through certain circles about my technical skills and thoroughness. I started getting calls from divorce attorneys, private investigators, and insurance companies looking for surveillance services. My business tripled within 6 months. I bought new equipment, hired an assistant, and moved to a better office. The irony wasn't lost on me. Patricia's betrayal had ultimately made me more successful than I'd ever been. I never heard from Patricia again directly, but through mutual friends, I learned that she'd eventually left the state entirely, trying to start over somewhere where people didn't know her story. Michael was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison and ordered to pay over $2 million in restitution. His ex-wife Rebecca got everything in their divorce settlement and started a new life with their children. Looking back, I realized that if Patricia had just been honest with me from the beginning, if she'd told me she was unhappy and wanted to end our marriage, I would have been hurt, but I would have respected her decision. Instead, she chose deception and betrayal, and that choice cost her everything. The most satisfying part wasn't the revenge itself, it was the precision of it. Like a well-planned drone shot, every element was carefully positioned and executed at exactly the right moment. The footage I captured that night in the mountains was just the beginning. The real artistry was in how I used that evidence to orchestrate the complete destruction of both their lives. Some people might think I went too far, but I disagree. They made their choices, and I simply made sure those choices had appropriate consequences. Patricia wanted to live a double life, so I made sure everyone knew about both versions of her. Michael wanted to steal money and cheat on his wife, so I made sure the appropriate authorities were informed. In the end, justice was served with the same professional precision I brought to my videography work. And just like my best drone footage, the results spoke for themselves. But the story doesn't end there. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I received an unexpected call from my lawyer. Patricia was trying to contest the divorce settlement, claiming she'd signed under duress and that I'd coerced her with threats of public humiliation. I almost laughed. After everything that had happened, she still thought she could manipulate the situation to her advantage. Her new lawyer was apparently telling her she had grounds for a lawsuit, that my surveillance methods were illegal, and that the divorce agreement could be overturned. Let her try, I told my lawyer. Every piece of evidence I gathered was obtained legally. The GPS tracker on her car? She was my wife and it was our shared vehicle. The phone tracking? I had her permission to access her device. The drone footage? It was taken from public airspace over a property that doesn't belong to her. The legal challenge went nowhere. In fact, it backfired spectacularly. When Patricia's new lawyer tried to argue that I'd violated her privacy, the court ordered a full review of all the evidence. This meant that even more details of her affair became part of the public record, including text messages and emails that the original divorce proceedings had kept sealed. The text messages were particularly damaging. They revealed that Patricia hadn't just been having an affair, she'd been actively planning to leave me for Michael once he divorced his wife. She'd even discussed ways to hide assets from our divorce, including transferring money to accounts Michael had set up for her. One text thread from just 2 weeks before I caught them showed Patricia writing, "I can't wait to be rid of James. He's so boring compared to you. Once your divorce is final, we can start our real life together." Michael's response was equally cold, "Don't worry baby, I've got lawyers who can make sure you get everything in the settlement. James won't know what hit him." Reading those messages in court was like being stabbed all over again. It wasn't just that she'd cheated, she'd been actively plotting against me for months, planning to destroy my life while pretending to love me. The level of deception was breathtaking. But there was more. The court also reviewed Patricia's financial records during our marriage. It turned out that she'd been taking money from our joint accounts and giving it to Michael to help fund his lifestyle. Small amounts at first, $200 here, $500 there, but over the 8 months of their affair, she'd stolen over $15,000 from our savings. This revelation completely undermined her legal challenge. Instead of overturning our divorce agreement, The court ordered her to pay me back the stolen money plus interest and legal fees. She went from trying to get half our assets to owing me nearly $25,000. The judge was particularly harsh in his ruling. He stated that Patricia had engaged in a pattern of deception, theft, and marital misconduct that demonstrated a complete abandonment of her duties as a spouse. He also noted that my evidence gathering had been thorough, legal, and necessary to protect the plaintiff's interests. Meanwhile, Michael's criminal case was proceeding through the courts. The FBI investigation had uncovered even more financial crimes than initially suspected. He hadn't just been embezzling from his company, he'd been running a sophisticated money laundering operation, using shell companies and fake contracts to hide millions of dollars. The investigator I'd hired reached out to me with updates. Michael was facing federal charges for wire fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, and racketeering. The prosecution was seeking a 20-year sentence. His cooperation with authorities had been minimal because he knew that admitting to the full extent of his crimes would only increase his prison time. Rebecca, Michael's ex-wife, had become an unexpected ally in the prosecution. She provided investigators with years of financial records that Michael had kept at their home, thinking they were safely hidden. Her testimony revealed that Michael had been living a double life for far longer than anyone realized. The affairs went back at least 5 years and the financial crimes even longer. During one of their court appearances, Rebecca and I ended up sitting in the same waiting area. She recognized me from the evidence photos and came over to introduce herself. "You're James, aren't you?" she said. "I want to thank you. If you hadn't exposed Michael, I might have spent the rest of my life married to a criminal." We talked for about an hour, sharing our experiences of betrayal and the aftermath. Rebecca told me that she'd suspected something was wrong for years but had never been able to prove it. Michael was too careful, too manipulative. My drone footage had been the key that unlocked everything. The worst part, she said, wasn't even the cheating. It was realizing that our entire marriage had been built on lies. The house, the cars, the vacations, my children's private school tuition, it was all paid for with stolen money. Rebecca had filed her own lawsuit against Michael, seeking damages for the emotional distress and financial harm his actions had caused their family. She was also cooperating with the IRS to recover taxes on unreported income Michael had hidden in offshore accounts. The ripple effects of my revenge continued to spread. Patricia's family had initially supported her, believing her story that I'd been emotionally abusive and controlling. But when the court records became public, showing the text messages and evidence of her theft, they turned against her. Her parents called me to apologize. They'd raised Patricia better than that, they said, and they were ashamed of what she'd done. Her sister, who had initially let Patricia stay with her after the divorce, asked her to move out when she learned about the stolen money. Patricia was now completely isolated. She'd lost her job, her marriage, her family's support, and her reputation. She was working at a big-box retail store in a town 3 hours away, living in a studio apartment and barely making ends meet. The investigator also discovered that Patricia wasn't Michael's only victim among his business contacts. He'd targeted at least 3 other women in similar situations, married women who worked for companies that did business with his construction firm. 2 of them had also been receiving money and gifts funded by his embezzlement. This information became crucial to the prosecution's case. They were able to establish a clear pattern of behavior, showing that Michael had systematically used his position and stolen funds to manipulate vulnerable women. Patricia became a key witness in the federal case, though her testimony was given reluctantly and under subpoena. During her testimony, Patricia broke down on the witness stand. She admitted that she'd known Michael was married but had convinced herself that he would leave his wife for her. She'd believed his lies about the money, thinking he was just wealthy from his successful business career. "He made me feel special," she sobbed. "He said I deserved better than James, that I deserved luxury and excitement. I was stupid enough to believe him." But even in her testimony, Patricia couldn't resist trying to shift blame. She claimed that Michael had manipulated her, that she'd been a victim too. The prosecutor wasn't buying it. "Mrs. Patricia Thompson," he said, she kept her married name ironically, "you stole money from your husband's accounts to give to Mr. Michael Thompson. You lied to your husband repeatedly about your whereabouts. You actively planned to defraud him in a divorce settlement. How exactly were you a victim?" Patricia had no answer. The judge sentenced Michael to 18 years in federal prison and ordered him to pay $3.2 million in restitution. Patricia received 5 years probation and was ordered to pay back not just the money she'd stolen from me, but also her share of the restitution to Michael's company. As for me, my business continued to thrive. The publicity from the case had been mostly positive, I was seen as someone who'd used his professional skills to uncover the truth and seek justice. I received calls from divorce attorneys across the state, wanting to hire me for surveillance work. I also started teaching workshops on drone surveillance techniques for private investigators and security professionals. My story became a case study in how modern technology could be used to gather evidence in infidelity cases. 1 year after the divorce, I met someone new. Her name was Jennifer, and she was a forensic accountant who worked for one of the law firms that had hired me for surveillance work. She'd been following the Michael Thompson case and was impressed by my methodical approach to gathering evidence. Jennifer was everything Patricia hadn't been: honest, straightforward, and genuinely interested in my work. She understood the technical aspects of what I did and appreciated the precision and planning it required. "You know," she said one evening as we watched one of my drone videos together, "most people would have just confronted their cheating spouse and demanded answers. But you built an airtight case that destroyed not just the affair, but the entire criminal enterprise behind it. That takes a special kind of mind." We've been together for 2 years now, and I've never once worried about her faithfulness. After what I went through with Patricia, I appreciate Jennifer's transparency even more. She shows me her phone freely, tells me where she's going and who she'll be with, and genuinely seems to enjoy sharing her life with me. The final chapter of the Patricia and Michael saga came last month. Michael was released early from prison for good behavior and cooperation with ongoing investigations. He's now living in a halfway house and working at a car wash, trying to pay off his restitution debt. Patricia attempted to contact me through social media, sending a long message apologizing for everything and asking if we could find closure together. I deleted the message without responding. Some chapters in life need to stay closed. But the most satisfying moment came when I received a call from a documentary filmmaker who wanted to make a film about my case. The story had apparently gained attention in legal circles as an example of how technology and careful planning could expose complex fraud schemes. "Your case shows how infidelity and financial crime often go hand in hand," the filmmaker explained, "and how someone with the right skills and determination can uncover the truth, no matter how elaborate the deception." I agreed to participate in the documentary, which aired on a major streaming platform last year. It was titled The Drone Detective: How One Man's Betrayal Led to Justice. The film won several awards and brought even more business to my company. Patricia's part of the story was told through court records and archived news footage. She declined to be interviewed for the film, probably because she was still dealing with the legal and financial consequences of her actions. Today, I run a successful investigation and surveillance company with 12 employees and clients across multiple states. We specialize in using cutting-edge technology to uncover the truth in complex cases. My personal experience with betrayal has made me particularly effective at understanding the psychology of deception. I never remarried Patricia, and I have no regrets about how I handled the situation. She made a choice to betray our marriage, steal our money, and plan my financial ruin. I simply made sure that choice had appropriate consequences. Justice, as it turned out, was best served with the precision of a well-planned drone operation. Thank you for watching this video. I see that 98% of you are still watching videos without subscribing to the channel. Perhaps YouTube will no longer offer videos from this channel in the future, so I recommend subscribing. This will also allow me to see what stories you are interested in, which will motivate me to release new videos. Also, keep writing in the comments what stories you would like to hear. I try to read all the comments and choose topics for videos that appeal to the maximum number of subscribers. Now you have a playlist on your screen where you can find more stories that were released before you found this channel. You can also go to the channel and watch them there.